In describing her stardom, Howard Hughes said there are two good reasons why men go to see her, and those are good enough. She is so much more than that. So much more. She is a living legend. For all of us who aspire to do anything in this industry, to see how long she has succeeded, to see how she continues to inspire and enrich, that is the great blessing. I am so honored that she asked me to be here tonight to moderate. She is a wonderful person, not just an actress, not just a movie star, and she's all that, but she simply is one of the immortals. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one and only Jane Russell.
Well, we'll have to tell them the truth.
Yes. I would like to tell you how modest this wonderful lady is, first of all. We have interviewed together a bunch of times. And one time I could not resist, but I brought a player's directory from 1949, and I wanted to show Jane her picture. And she looked at the picture in 1949 and she said, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
So I did something that I've never done in my life because I love to treasure these books and keep them as they are, but I said, "Jane, would you honor me and autograph this book?" So this is the picture. I'm not passing this around. But this is the picture, and she writes on it, "Who?" Jane Russell. Okay. That's all she did. You should feel the love in this room the same way paparazzi feel the love for Lindsay Lohan tonight.
Oh, wow.
This is a room of people that 24 hours ago did not know that you were going to be in Southern California. These people traveled really quickly to get here because they love Jane Russell.
I think that's mainly because she's still alive.
And I want to tell you folks, one of the reasons we have Jane Russell with us tonight, I do want to single out an individual who is one of the legendary casting directors in this business. And had we been around, like me, to have this man in our corner, we would have been lucky. He's a two-time Emmy-nominated casting director, directed countless shows in television and films, and his name is Marvin Page, the legend.
Yes, if you ever want to know who anybody is, you call Marvin.
That's right. Okay. Jane, let's start at the beginning. You were born on the summer solstice.
Yes, that's June 21.
June 21, so she recently had a birthday.
And it's 21/21. I'm 86.
When did you know that you wanted to be an actress?
I never did. I call all of this, I'm going to do either a book or a tape or something called The Lord's Accidents. They look like accidents to you, but he had it all planned. But I always started out in a different direction. And all of a sudden I'd find myself all turned around and there I was. I'll have to give you a couple of examples, I guess. My mother had been an actress, a stage actress, and I thought she had looked at my report card, and she said, "It's art, music, or drama, dear. Just don't worry about the math and the science. So, right, that means I'm a right brain person. See, the left brain is brilliant and they know all kinds of things, but the right brain is impossible. It's art, music, and drama. So, anyway, I was not going to take up acting because my mother was an actress. I didn't want her telling me what to do. And I was going to be a designer. And I even got the check and went all the way down into Hollywood when I got out of high school and took the check. And they said, well, this is the middle of the week. Now, dear, why don't you come back? We're starting Monday. So I went all the way back out to the valley where I lived. And, on my way to the valley, I knew if one of my best friends was starting to go to Maria Uspenskaya's drama school.
Can we tell them, if they don't know, does anyone not know who Maria Uspenskaya was? In the 1941 film The Wolfman, she was the gypsy lady. There you walk with Thorny through the fog. Okay.
Anyway, she was a fabulous older lady, and she had smoked a cigarette with a big long, and she was running a really good school. My mother had put me in one for a few months or something, and I spent all the time across the street in the bowling alley. So, but this school was interesting. Anyway, I went there to see my friend and to see how she liked where she's going. And she wasn't there, and kids are going by with their plays under the arm and all this kind of thing. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I was in the class when she got here? Just to shock her. So I took my check and I went in and gave it to them. So there I was in Maria Uspenskaya's school. So, okay, then I had another friend. These are all Pats. That was Pat Dawson. Pat Alexander was a really good friend. We used to call each other and find out what we're wearing to school. We were, going to be twins or some damn thing. Anyway, she was working in a coffee shop at Hollywood and Vine. And one day a photographer walked in there. His name was Tom Kelly. And he asked her if she'd ever done any modeling. And she said no. And he said, well, I think you'd be good if you'd like to come by the studio. He says, my wife's always there. There's no problem. So give it a try, and we'll see how it works out. So she called me because I could drive my mother's car, and she didn't have one. And she said, will you take me to this guy's studio? And I said, sure. So we took it. Well, he hired both of us. So I learned all the tricks about posing and all that kind of nonsense. And we did that for a couple of years. Maybe it was only one. Because we were just out of high school, and one day, Tom was wonderful. He also is the one that does the nude scene of Marilyn Monroe that I think you've seen. He was a good photographer. And, but he never asked us to do anything like. Anyway, one day, this agent who goes around from studio to studio with pictures and whatnot, and he was a friend of Tom's, and he knew him. He said, he saw a picture of me on the wall, and he said, who's that? And Tom says, she's just a nice girl, a nice little girl from the valley, you silver fox, leave her alone. And he got busy doing something else, and the agent went over and grabbed the picture and put it in his briefcase and took off. And he went to a couple of studios, and then he got to the casting office of this picture. They were going to do The Outlaw, and this girl is supposed to be half Spanish and half Irish. Mm-hmm. And the guy said, well, she looks the part, and we've got 5 boys and only 4 girls that we're going to test at the end of the week. So, bring her in. Well, then Levis, the agent, had to turn around and go back to Tom and say, who is she and how do I get a hold of her? So I went in and I tested for The Outlaw, and I guess you all know what happened. But things just happen, crazy things, that you wouldn't plan or nobody'd think of. They're the Lord's accidents.
Well, I just want to backtrack just for a second, because how did you first meet Howard Hughes?
I didn't meet him until, first of all, Howard Hawks was supposed to do the picture. Mm-hmm. He's a wonderful director. And we all went out on location and in Arizona. And Jack Butel was working with Howard Hawks and Thomas Mitchell and Walter Houston.
Right, Walter Houston.
2 fabulous guys. And I was doing publicity guck. And the photographers would all be lined up, and because Tom had been so careful with us, they would say, now I had a blouse that was going like this, and they'd say, now see those 2 pails? Now Jane, honey, you run down and pick up those pails. I had no idea what they were getting. And all I did was publicity out there. And one day, the publicity guy and a photographer came and asked me if I would jump up and down on the bed in a nightgown. Well, I went to Howard Hawks crying. I knew something was really bad, because I still hadn't seen all the pictures on the cover of anything. And I was crying, and he said, now listen, you're a big girl now, and if you feel that something is wrong, you just say no loud and clear. He said, it's strictly up to you. Well, it was the best advice I'd ever gotten in my life. And after that, guys would get up on the 2nd story patio, little porch, and ask me to walk under it. And I'd stand there like this and say, no. And they'd pack up their gear and leave. I didn't care. So that was my publicity experience. It was really, and I was going with Robert Waterfield at the time, and we just ignored the magazine sections of everything where you'd go.
We were trying to figure out how you first met Howard Hughes.
Okay, right. We'll go back to that.
That's fine. No, if you want to talk about more publicity photos,
I sure don't. But Howard Hawks they had to fly the film in so Howard Hughes could see it at night. And every single morning he would call Howard Hawks with a suggestion, another suggestion. And it sounded like he was trying to make Billy the poor little guy that just everything bad happened to, instead of the little smartass that he really was. And that Hawks was shooting. You know, you can tell in that picture when Hawks has it and when Hughes. Anyway, Howard Hawks said to Hughes, "Howard, why don't you direct this picture?" And he says, "Don't worry, kids, we'll work again someday." And he got in his plane and flew home. And Jack said, "Gee, do I go home to Dallas or to Hollywood?" And they said, "You're going to Hollywood, boy, you know." And I lived in the valley, so that wasn't any problem, and I went home. It was about a month later that we got a call that Hughes wanted to see us. So I hadn't met him. They've put out stories that I was working in a foot bath place or something and Howard Hughes had come in there. It's a lie. Absolute lie. Anyway, we came in to see Howard and he said, well, he was going to direct the picture. Well, he was a very sweet, quiet, polite person. He was nothing like a lot of the books you're reading. But he didn't know he was a terrible director. He didn't know how to tell you what he wanted. When Hawks first talked to us, I had flopped back on the cot and Jack had held his head, you know, and he said, "Now, that's what I want you kids to do." Perfectly natural. We never got to do a natural move with Howard Hughes. And it took 9 months to make that picture that should have been made in about 8 weeks. And that's how I met Howard Hughes, anyway.
Now that, you, I think, signed the contract for that film in about 1941. And the film did not get released right away.
No.
And
it was that shocking scene.
Shocking to you, puberty for me.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Where Jack is freezing and, you know, in the bed and dying and whatever. And so she pulls the cover up over him this way, and again, the cameraman was right here. And he said, "I got to take that over," and he went over here and shot it. Well, Hughes saw this one, and that's the one they were going to use in the picture. Well, that was the biggest fight in the whole world, and it's still in the picture. And I went there with a Catholic priest one time, and he turned it around backward, and the two of us went in there. He said he was curious, and when he came out, he said, "Well, what was the matter with that?" I said, "I don't know." And that's the way that happened.
Well, but the film was, it took 2 years to finally get limitedly released.
Yeah.
And then 3 years later, it was released more formally.
Well, they had a brief. Do you remember the name of those companies? They're not companies, but they told you what could go in a movie and what could not.
You mean the Breen office?
The Breen office. And there were 2 of them actually that we went through but it was, I liked that because I knew that would be okay. But Hughes was one of the people who was going to fight them about that. And now we've got shocking pictures. I'm sure glad I wasn't trying to do it today.
Oh. Well, she's talking about the Hayes office and the Breen office too.
Yeah.
But the sequence did stay in the picture, and for my money, it's probably one of the most sensual close-ups in motion picture history. And then you go from sensual to Bob Hope.
I thought I died and gone to heaven when I worked with Hope. We made one in between. It was called Young Widow. And a lady put in her column that if the young widow had only died when her husband did, this picture need never have been made. And I agree. It was really dumb. We had 3 different directors on it. So when I got to work with Bob Hope, and it went like this, and they used the first take unless there was a terrible accident or something, and it was just heaven. I was shocked to find out it was really like that.
I believe one of the writers was Frank Tashlin on the Paleface. Frank Tashlin, I think, wrote the Paleface.
Yeah, he wrote it, and
he directed Son of Paleface.
Son of,
Right.
yeah, but he wasn't the director on the first
No,
one.
I think it was Norman Z. McLeod, I believe.
Yeah, he was a buddy, a good buddy, Frank, and he came out. We had a chapel on the property. We had, like 7.5 acres, and it was when the San Fernando Valley was really a beautiful place. But LA just let the builders come in and buy up all these small ranches, and we had 4 horses. Well, you couldn't have that. They'd build about 20 cracker box houses on top of this.
So I just want to go back for a minute. Before Bob Hope, this is a question that I think this audience would love to hear. Because we know Howard Hughes was a filmmaker. We know that he was a very rich man. But we also may not know that he designed a piece of clothing apparel for you. That they may like to know what it was.
Well, I could see what he was trying to do. No, it was very sensible and practical. I had to wear a jersey blouse, and you could see the seams in the bras in those days. And we've got them today. He was trying to design a bra that was rounded and you couldn't see seams. So I was in the dressing room and I looked at this thing and I don't want to wear that. And I threw it under the cot in my dressing room, and I just put on my own bra, and I took some Kleenex. People keep saying, oh, they use the wrong word, and all it does is crinkle that stuff. I just put Kleenex over the top of it so that you couldn't see the seams. And then I went out, and they looked and looked, and finally said, okay. So that's what I did the rest of the picture. But now they've got exactly what Howard was trying to get.
We all know what he was trying to get at there. Do you still have that brassiere in your collection?
No, I threw it under the bed of the cot in my dressing room. Do I still have?
I thought maybe you saved it as a keepsake.
No way.
I asked that because half the guys wanted me to ask that question. They wanted to know that. So let's get back to Bob Hope, because you said that you thought you had died and gone to heaven. And in the past, we've talked about Bob Hope. Tell them what it was like to be in his presence on a movie set.
Well, he was just as funny off, if not more so, than he was on the screen. And he was just a joy to work with. It was lots of fun. And
you played Calamity Jane.
With him?
Yes, in the Paleface, you were Calamity Jane.
Okay, I couldn't remember my name.
That's right. Did you have to take gun lessons to learn how to hold a gun?
No, and there's one picture of me in the haystack, of course. And I'm lying back in the haystack. I think it's on the cover of my book. And there's a gun here that's lying down beside me, and I'm lying down like this. And I always sign it, Dear So-and-so, I'd be happy to shoot you, but I just can't get up. That's the way it looks.
Oh, my. Bob Hope once introduced you as the two and only Jane Russell.
Bob Hope was crazy about me.
Is that a surprise? You say that.
He used to call me lumps. No, you don't understand. When he was being really affectionate, it was lumpy.
But I want to tell you. Oh, my. Well, let's talk about for a second, since you've worked with so many great people, you also, we can't not mention Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, no, of course.
And let's see, there's a question from someone in the audience named Matt, who said, no, it wasn't Matt, it was someone else who said, what was it like working with Marilyn Monroe?
Now let's do some of the earlier ones first.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about, do we have any LA Rams fans in the audience because you were married to the great quarterback.
Yep, Robert Waterfield.
Mm-hmm.
But people today, you can even say the name Bob Hope or, that
right.
We all knew. And they'll say, who's that? They just don't know.
No.
It's too bad. I like that book about the 40th generation was the best generation. Because they had the best clothes, the best hairdos. Everybody was patriotic. The best music. We had Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole and the fabulous bands and Tommy Dorsey.
Speaking of Frank Sinatra, you got to work with Frank. You also got to work with Groucho, I believe.
Well, that was not a very happy picture.
We're talking about Double Dynamite.
They changed the name. They were trying to get people in the theater with Double Dynamite. No, neither Frank nor I liked it. And he had just broken up with Nancy. And Ava Gardner was there almost every day sitting up in the booth. And everybody was like this about the two of them doing that, just he left his wife and is going with Ava Gardner. Today it isn't shocking, see, but it was then. And so that wasn't a real happy time.
Did you ever get to hang out with Groucho Marx at any other time?
No.
No, but that was it. So you're just on camera.
Well, did we do it on camera?
No, you didn't do it on camera.
Yeah. The
TCM.
Yeah. They did the Jane Russell Day last Tuesday or something.
Did anybody see it was 24 hours of Jane Russell on August 7th?
Wasn't that all? I saw that stuff and I couldn't remember the next scene. There were things I did on that I thought, we never did that. So you can see what 86 will do for you. I don't hear well or see well, but I still sing and dance.
That's right. No, we were going to talk about
She has white hair. I used to be a brunette, I know, but now I'm a blonde. And I'm sorry I don't look like I used to, but then neither do you.
Several people in the audience have filled out cards, and I will go to some of their questions. Several of them talked about Robert Mitchum, your memories of working with Robert Mitchum.
Oh, yeah. I loved Mitch. And, but when I first started working with him, I overheard him talking to his brother John. And he said, well, she's Hard John, Hard John was a hard man to shave. And I said, Who? And he said, well, when we were kids, we had to go to a country school, and there was a girl there. She had a dress on, but she had long red flannel underwear that went down to her ankles. And well, you kind of remind me of her. I said, oh, thank you, you know. But we ended up just lifelong friends. I lived in Santa Barbara, and they moved up to Santa Barbara. My husband used to do, my third husband, used to do barbecues, wonderful barbecues, and Dorothy and Bob were always there, and Jonathan Winters and Stuart Granger, and people in Santa Barbara are buddies.
You also did an interview with Robert Mitchum on Turner, if I remember.
Yes,
Right.
we did. We went.
But didn't they air that on the 7th as well?
We went. Yeah, they did. They showed it. We went back to Atlanta, and actually, Bob he was not doing well, and he had an oxygen tank on his back as soon as he left the set. See, and we went outside, and we were sitting there, and he shut the tank off and lit a cigarette. And I said, didn't the doctor tell you shouldn't be smoking? He says, what for? It's too late now. Went right on smoking. It was shortly after that he died. And my husband and I were the only two people that were not family that were there. It was on a ship.
Let me jump into that great film with Marilyn Monroe at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody of any era that if they don't hear the name Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, they don't instantly think of a classic film.
Well, it was definitely the best one. But it was because Howard Hawks was the director. And Jack Cole was the choreographer. And all the choreographers you hear about now all learned it from Jack Cole, believe me. He was fabulous. And neither Marilyn nor I had ever danced, and so he had to teach us all that. And he had all those guys, you know, and he was going to beat the guys, but he had the patience of Job with us.
Let's talk about that sequence, which...
And also, Marilyn had never sung before. So it was Jack Cole's piano man that taught her. She had the pitch perfect and everything, and she loved the music, but she was afraid to sing. She had never sung in public. I had, you know, because I'd been at least 10 years in the business before she was. She was a very sweet lady.
The sequence with you doing that dance with all those men,
Yeah.
the bodybuilders, must have been an arduous scene to do.
One of my brothers was one of those guys. I have 4 younger brothers, and Jamie was in that. He also was right beside me when we sang Bye Bye Baby. What were we going to talk about?
What was it like filming that sequence with you and that gorgeous?
Well, Jack, that's what he did. He taught me what to do, and I had to learn it. It's the first time I'd ever danced, first time Marilyn had ever danced.
And that's my favorite scene in the whole picture. It really is. I mean, all those guys and you.
Oh.
You know, gentlemen may prefer blondes, but you know, this guy always preferred the brunette.
Well, I had one girl cousin named Pat. And we were surrounded by 12 boys. So doing a song like that with all those boys was just normal.
Just normal. The film went on to be one of the biggest successes of the year, and when it premiered, for those of you who have not been there, one of the most unforgettable moments in Grauman's Chinese theater history is when you and Marilyn put your hands and feet in cement simultaneously. Have you all seen that wonderful newsreel footage? For those of us who are actors who have maybe 20 years before we will have our hands and feet in the cement, what was that like?
Well, it was thrilling because my friend Pat Alexander, the one that drove me to I drove to Tom Kelly, we used to ditch school and go there and see if we could put our feet in any of the stars' feet marks. And of course, they were about like this long, and ours were this long. And so it was a big thrill to me to be able to do that because I remembered very well what we used to do.
Well, for those of us who are here, I just want to, when I first moved out here, my wife and I went to the Chinese theater, and I had her, she put her hands by your hands.
Oh.
I never thought that I would be meeting you. Just touch my hands so I can just, look at that. That's fabulous.
Yeah, but Marilyn's there is kind of a gold color, and mine is dirty gray, and I don't know why they didn't make them both the same, but they didn't. I think Fox fixed it up.
When you were doing the film, I mean, there was probably a lot of publicity for the both of you, but when you were doing the film, did you feel that you were getting equal shares with Marilyn Monroe?
Oh yeah, we were fine. Everybody was trying to put up a battle,
Right.
you know, and it was just not there. Her makeup man told my makeup man, Shotgun Britain, that
Wait,
was his
your makeup
name.
man. Tell him his name again. That was fun.
Shotgun Britain. He was a Texan and he talked so fast. And so they named him Shotgun, and that's all anybody ever called him. And I got another story about him. But anyway, Marilyn, her makeup man told my makeup man that Marilyn was all ready. She had come in like an hour and a half to 2 hours before I did. Because I came in and got ready in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. And I was not going to make it any longer. But other people, they'd come in and that she was all ready, but she was just nervous about going out on the set. And so I said, oh, okay. And I would go by her dressing room and say, come on, baby, we got about 10 minutes to get over there. And she'd go, oh, all right, and get up. And we'd go trotting on together. She was like having a little sister around, really. We were very fond of each other.
And did you maintain a relationship after the movie?
Yes, except she went to New York, remember, shortly after. Mm-hmm. And New York is not a place I go to very often. So we didn't get to really be close together. Mm-hmm.
I have to guess that you were probably shocked like the rest of the world was when the news...
Ah, really? Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about it?
I think there was dirty pool.
If you want to elaborate, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
There's nothing I can say.
Okay.
I just personally think there was something going on.
Okay.
See, also, she started, while we were making the picture, she was dating
Joe. Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio. And I was married to Robert Waterfield, so she wanted to know what it was like being around guys that, you know, were in sports. And I said, honey, you'll see a lot of guys.
Wow. Of all of the leading men that you have worked with, and my gosh, I mean, you've worked with so many, do you have a favorite?
No, you can't. There's Clark Gable and Robert Mitchum and Richard Egan. Mm-hmm. Oh, we had a lot of fun fighting. And, you know, you just can't pick one. And Bob Hope.
It's funny, I never think of hearing Clark Gable and Bob Hope in the same.
No, but they're just, I'm talking about working with them. They're a ball to work with.
And when you worked with in The Tall Men, what was it like being with Clark on the set?
He was the biggest tease that ever walked the face of the earth. And he was a valley guy. See, he'd had a ranch out there too. We weren't Beverly Hills people, we were valley people. Robert Waterfield, let's see, I had to go to Europe for 6 months to do Gentlemen Marry Brunettes, which wasn't near as good as the other one. And when I got back, I had to go with Gable to do Tall Men. We were down in Mexico. So Robert Waterfield came down because we'd been apart for such a long time. And he's over in this patio area talking to somebody. And Gable's sitting here by me. And when I had first met Gable was years before, and I had broken up with Robert Waterfield, and I had started dating John Payne. And he was a dear guy. But then I went back to Robert Waterfield, and we got married. But anyway, here's Gable, and he's sitting here saying, "Now, don't you miss John Payne?" He was such a neat guy. He says, and did you ever get to see him again? You know, and John Payne. And I was sitting there like this. Shut your mouth. I'll tell you. Just the worst thing he could thought. And he did things like that all the time. To whatever, if he knew a way to needle you, you know, and torment. So Raoul Walsh was the director on that picture, and he was one of my favorite. I loved him. He had a patch over one eye. He rolled his own cigarettes. He wore cowboy boots. And people had told me, don't ever go on Raoul Walsh's set. He's a mean man. Well, what mean meant was he would stand and watch a scene, and then he'd say, "All right, take it before they forget it." And some actors got just furious because it was, I said, he's listening. He's already seen it. He's listening. Does he believe it? You know. But anyway, that was Raoul. And Raoul and Gable were in the same house down in Mexico when we made The Tall Men. And I had my stand-in and my best friend, Carmen, in the house I had. So Raoul, knowing what a terrible tease Gable was, he found a de-skunked skunk. And he put it in Gable's bedroom. And Gable came home to take his shower, and he saw that, and he got up. I mean, he was just walking in, but he gets up and he goes against the wall, and it's, Raoul, Raoul, Raoul. And finally the door is kicked in, and there's Raoul standing there rolling a cigarette and laughing his head off. And he told all of us, and we were thrilled.
You were going to have an interview with Jane Russell, and you just saw Jane Russell do her impersonation of Clark Gable coming out of a bath and Raoul Walsh rolling a cigarette. What more could you ask for? You still got it, kid. You still got it. Oh, my goodness.
Well, you get all that when being raised with 12 boys.
Jane Russell also starred in one of those amazing 3D pictures of the 1950s. It was called The French Line, and as I recall, the movie poster said, JR in 3D, it will knock both your eyes out.
Leave it to you to read that.
Now, when you were filming in 3D, well, I know the answer, you told me, but tell them, what was the difference between filming in 3D versus a regular film?
I don't know.
Right. It was exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Have any of you seen the film, The French Line, on Turner? Okay. You gotta catch this one. It doesn't jump out at you right away, but she's got a bath scene.
I've got what?
You have that scene when you sing the song, "Well, I'll be switched. I'm about to get hitched." In The French Line.
That's the wrong one.
Which one?
I'm looking for trouble.
Look, that's the one where you're behind the. Oh, that's right. That was the lost scene, right? Remember? I don't know if you know that there was a sequence that was removed from the 3D film that in the 2D sequences you're not going to see.
Right. Because we didn't have a Breen office.
Right.
I wish we had.
Right. Right, because there's a sequence.
But they had to cut it out. Good.
Yeah. But you and I saw it last year. That we ran it at the 3D festival.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. What? I was listening to you throughout the whole film. You were like, "Who is that?" You were watching that movie like you hadn't seen it in a while.
Right.
So, of all of the things that you've done on film, whether it's acting or singing or doing comedy, what do you like best? What did you do to your favorite?
Well, I never got to play really serious older things. Mm-hmm. But I loved playing comedy. And
Did you like producing? Because you and your husband started a production company.
Yes. There were 2 pictures that I was in and 2
that you weren't.
Or 4 that he made.
Right.
He was in charge of.
The fuzzy pink nightgown was one of them.
Fuzzy pink nightgown I liked.
Right.
And the director came to me and he said, "This thing should be in color." Mm-hmm. And I said, "It's a kidnapping. It should be," what do they say, what's the word for the...
You talking about film noir?
Film noir. I thought it should be that. But I didn't know that he'd been directing, Jerry Lewis and
Dean Martin.
So he was a comedy director, and I didn't know he was going to make a comedy out of it. And I'm trying now to get it colored.
Oh, you want it? So you're in favor of colorization?
Well, I think it should be in color. It should have come out in color. It never got any good publicity or anything at the time. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough one to see today, too. So you did a lot of television also. You did a lot of television. You were on Desilu Playhouse. You did. As a matter of fact, you were actually doing television in the 70s and in the 80s. I know you were on an episode of Hunter.
Well, I think the studios were falling apart. The owners were dying, or the whole thing was getting messed up during that time. And a lot of independents were being made, and they were being made way in Europe or Lord knows. They weren't in studios. RKO did something with Lucille Ball and her husband. It was just, everything was changing. So I was going to do whatever I could do, and I did some TV. I did a lot of, and then I did things with Connie Haynes and Beryl Davis that were all spiritual things, hand clapping. And it was really funny because here we are up on the stage in Las Vegas in Mr. Blackwell's beaded gowns, singing spirituals. That was another one of the Lord's accidents.
And you were singing with Beryl Davis, you said.
Yeah,
There
Beryl.
she is, right here.
I know. I should make her get up and get in the light. I'm staying with her right now. Yeah.
Well, I know that you two sing. I'm not going to stop you from standing here and singing if you want to.
No, we're not going to.
Okay, then I.
No, but she just looks so good.
Okay, I am a tremendous fan. I asked you this before. If any of you are fans of the Billy Jack movies, there was one made in the 60s called The Born Losers, and you were in that one. You worked with Tom Laughlin. Uh-oh.
I don't even think that I saw that on Tuesday. I don't even think that was me. I never remember that glitzy dress and whatever, at all. And it just doesn't seem to me to be the same. I think they got somebody that looks like me and did another scene.
You did another scene. We have. I'm sorry.
One thing there was something I wanted to tell you about.
The makeup guy. You wanted to talk about Shotgun. You had a Shotgun story.
Oh, yeah. Howard Hughes had put the people that I really liked and that could move quickly as a crew. He'd put them all under contract, which they didn't usually do at all. And if I had to go to another studio, my crew went with me. And we were all together, and we were like a family, and we had a ball. And Shotgun, we'd go to, say, 20th Century or something, and we didn't know people there. Shot would know some of them, and I'd be in my little dressing room on the set, and he would be way across the room talking to somebody. And I'd go to the door, and I'd say, "Shotgun, get in here." And he'd go, "Oh, yes, madam, yes, madam." And he'd come wiggling across, and he'd come in, and we'd close the door and throw our arms around each other and laugh, because we knew darn well they were all shocked to pieces out there. And then he would go back out, and they would say, "How can you work with this bitch?" And he'd say, "Oh, she pays good." And they finally figured out, that we were all kidding.
Oh, that's great. Well, we have some questions from some of the members of our audience, and one of them says, her name is Elizabeth, and it says, "One of the highlights of my life is when I met your mother walking my dog in the valley. She was extremely nice to me."
Oh.
And then you wrote, "How is she doing?"
My mom died at the age of 96. And she was very well her whole life long. She was a very wise woman. She had 5 kids. I had 4 younger brothers. My cousin Pat had 6 brothers. And Aunt Ruth had 2 more. That's your 12. Anyway, Mom, we were hellions. We hollered, at each other, and she would just let it calm down, and then she'd say, "Now, dear, I think maybe this would work, but you think it over." And you always ended up doing exactly what she wanted. She was just the wisest woman in the world. She never yelled at us, never. So, walking the dog, you met a very, very wise lady.
Diane asks, "What advice do you have for women 50 years young, and what advice do you have for people who want to get into the business?"
Ooh, well, pray. I think the Lord has a job for all of us, but we often don't know what it is. And if He'll open the right doors and close the right doors. My mom was one of the best Bible teachers also that I ever heard, because having been an actress, she could make all the characters in the Bible come to life. You know, you really knew who they were and what they were like, and there's a lot of bad things and good things, and bad things and good.
Carol asks, I hope you don't mind I'm using your name so you know that. Okay. Carol asks, as a singer, are you a natural talent or did you have vocal training?
No, I didn't have vocal training ever. But I always liked music. It was art, music, or drama. So, there was...
About vocal singing? Vocal training?
No, I had no vocal training. I just started singing.
Not only is...
Mother had us, each one of us had to play a different instrument. So I started out with piano, and the next one was trombone for Tom, and clarinet for Jamie, and violin for Wally, and so that you had a musical background, you knew if you wanted to go on with that.
Not only
vocal training, I guess, would be a good thing to do.
But you were so successful without it.
Well, if there were plays around that you could get in, it would really be good for acting and singing. Do it as much as you can. Because fortunately, Howard Hughes sent all the girls that were under contract to him to this one little lady that was just a marvelous coach. And she would have us moving, doing things while we're talking. She would teach us how to do that. And, you know, you'd be doing something, no, I'm not going to do that. And then do something else over here. And your lines had to go along with the action. And that was one wonderful thing to be able to learn.
It wasn't just acting for you, though. You have done some pretty amazing things aside from acting. First of all, in television, not only did you do some wonderful work on television shows, but in the 1970s, you became the spokesperson for Playtex.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to tell you...
I was the bra lady for 15 years to one whole generation.
And I like to call that generation, which I was a part of, the luckiest generation.
Oh, I see.
At least my father was thrilled about those commercials anyway. For my benefit, not for... Okay. But aside from that, this amazingly wonderful woman, you adopted some children, and you had a wonderful, wonderful idea that you wanted to make it easier for other people who wanted to adopt children. She started a foundation, and to date, they have placed over 51,000 children in homes.
That was another one of the Lord's accidents. You see, before I was married, I had an abortion. And I damn near died. I was in bed and in a hospital for a long time. It would just, and Mom used to say, the Lord has a path that He wants you on, and He will show you that path. But if you go off of it, He'll rub your nose in it, so you know what's wrong about that. And He will hope that you will go to work and do something about that. But He'll get you back on the path. And so that's I ended up not being able to have children of my own, and I couldn't even believe what a house would be like if you didn't have kids. My mother had 21 grandchildren running around on her property. And I just thought, you got to have kids. So I started looking, and I had got my daughter Tracy, and she was born on my birthday. And I had been praying about the right child. And then, because I'd never had an older brother, like my cousin Pat, she had 2 older brothers and 4 younger. I wanted my daughter Tracy to have an older brother. So I looked for a boy that was a year or 2 years old. Well, dear, we only place babies, and you will have a 2 or a 3 year wait. I said, no, I ain't waiting, and I just walked away. And it ended up that I was invited to go to a thing in England for the King and the Queen, a show with some other actors. And I took my mother, and we went to France. We went early. We went to France to see one of my Pat friends that was living there then. And then I got to Italy, and then I got to Germany. And in each of these places, I saw kids in orphanages that desperately needed homes and a dad and a mother. One was a whole bunch of little boys in a great big circle with spoons, and they're just sitting there like this. Our kids would have been throwing food at each other and giggling and laughing and having a ball. These little kids were just so sad, and you had to be, this was in France, and there were nuns walking around behind them. And you could tell nobody played with them. You know, they just, ugh. So that was the other thing. The Lord just led me around by the nose to each of these places, you know, and got me into orphanages or got me into something. And I was learning so much. And when I got through, I just couldn't stop. I knew I had to do something about that. And you'll never find anybody that starts a charity of any kind that hasn't had their nose rubbed in it. Either their mom had it or they had it or something, and that's what starts it. And it's the Lord putting this yearning in your heart to do something. So when he finally led me to the right man. He was terrific. And he was an international president of this organization. It was called International Social Service. And when I was looking for the right place to try and find out what to do, Mom said, there's a nice hallway with doors all the way along, and what you do is go down, you say, Lord, you give me the right door. You knock on the door. If it doesn't open, you move on. You knock on that door. The one that opens, you go in. And that's what I did. And I finally got to this terrific man in International Social Service. And he told me, oh, we just had a meeting over in Europe, and it was all about that. But we don't have the money. Now, if you could raise the money, we could get the job done for you. So I went home and I grabbed Adrienne Bryan, who was married to David Bryan, the actor, and she had gone to chapel with us all the time. And I said, we got to pray, because we got to raise money, and I don't know how to raise 5 cents. And so she was introducing me to all these right people, and we got WAIF going, and we ended up with chapters in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, Hawaii, and they were all doing the same thing and raising money for kids. And they would invite They would invite the people that wanted to adopt and the kids that were available in the whole area where they lived, and they'd have a party in a park. We were told to have, and the kids were playing games with the adults, and some of them, they'd say, now everybody that signs their name, you'll get the best one will get a prize. And they'd go around, sign your name. Just sign your name, please. And people could watch these kids in action, and they maybe came for a boy 2 and would end up with a girl 5. Because they just would fall in love with this one kid that they kept following. And that's how we did it.
So, as we sit here right now, as we sit here right now, there are over 51,000 children that have been living amazing lives, and that has nothing to do with you as an actress. That has to do with your heart.
No. And all the people that the Lord gave me to do the work. I didn't do it, He did it.
But it's a legacy for you, too. I mean, without you, that wouldn't have happened.
Well,
I mean, that's
without my nose getting rubbed in it, right.
Now, that also brings up, I guess, a parallel, if you would. Roy Rogers also adopted,
Right.
and you worked with him
Yeah.
in Son of Paleface.
Right.
Did you ever have any discussions with Roy?
With Roy and Dale, yeah. Sure.
Because
They had adopted kids.
do you all know about Roy Rogers? Isn't that amazing? He would pick up kids who were following him, and he'd put them on the plane when he was touring, and he would take them and adopt them. That's an amazing story. And that all started because of what happened to Dale.
Right.
Because Dale gave birth to a baby with Down syndrome, and then she passed away, and Dale wrote, I think, the first book
Yeah.
about Down syndrome children. Dale Evans, amazing. Angel Unaware, good.
They were all part of the Hollywood Christian group, too.
Wow.
They were good Christians.
I think everybody would like to know, and when you hear this, that this wonderful lady still performs. They would love to know what you're doing these days.
Well, when my husband died in '99 in Santa Barbara, and I had been, one of the things I used to do was go and sing in clubs, I did some TV, but not much, but a lot of club work or plays when the studios were falling apart. And so when my husband died in Santa Barbara, my kids moved me up to Santa Maria. And I could see that there was nothing for older people to do up there. And years before I had done this once, so you look for a piano player, and it could be done in any city or any village in the United States or in Europe. We found a piano player who knows all the old songs, the 40s, the good period. And he has to be able to play by ear, not reading it, and he can play in different keys. Now that's a genius, and it's hard to find, but that's the one that gets paid. And none of the other gets paid. So we started a thing on a Friday night at 6 o'clock to 9, so people could go home and go to bed instead of stay up till 12 o'clock. Because older people don't want to stay up till 12 o'clock and start at 9. So we do it and we started out with 3 singers. We now have 10 or 12, according to the night and who can be there.
Do you want to tell them some of the people that sing with you?
You won't know them. They're people in the neighborhood that can sing. And they all just come in and, you know, try out. You don't take a bad singer. You do something else with them. But each person gets up, does 2 songs. We call it the swingin' 40s. And they have to do 40s music. The good music. They're wonderful. And we do it twice a month, and it's packed.
I wanted to mention who the people were for you to say. It's nobody we'd know. Because
No.
it's important for all of the terrific members of SAG in this room to know. It's not how well you are known, it's how much you love what you do.
Yeah.
And I just want you to have that in your head. But
Where is it held?
she wanted to know where it's held. Where do you do the singing?
Oh,
Is it the Radisson Hotel?
Radisson. How do you know?
In Santa Maria.
Yeah. But we
Did-
quit for the summer because everybody takes vacations, but we'll start again in the fall.
Someone had asked if you had performed at a hotel in Ojai.
In Ojai.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't, you didn't.
Where's Ojai?
It's in California. It's not as far as Santa Barbara. See, you get on the 101 and you take the 23, and you make a right. Yeah. But you've been singing with Beryl. You've been singing with some other. Was it Dolores?
Just did Palm Springs with Ann Jeffries.
That's right. You were with Ann Jeffries in Palm Springs.
Yeah, well, I do those. Those are paid. You get paid for those.
Right.
But we just do the one up in Santa Maria because there's not much to do and it's fun. And people come, older people all come in to hear their music.
When will you be starting it again? In September?
We'll see. I don't know.
We're all
It's up-
going on the website, you
It's
know.
up to the owners. see.
Okay.
But yes, I have been doing shows in Escondido and out in Palm Desert, and I think there were 4 of those. And I have a wonderful piano man who does all my arranging and everything, and he puts on jazz festivals. And
You're also in Cerritos, aren't you? You do a show in Cerritos?
yes, we did.
Right.
Thousand Oaks with the text band.
Oh, that's right. It was in the newspaper. Shortly after we watched the 3D movie, you were at the Thousand Oaks Civic.
Yeah. Well, that was
That was the Tex
one
Beneke
of
Orchestra.
That was one of the 4.
Are you going to be doing any more of those?
Yeah, sure. I don't know when or where, but I'm going to do them. I love that.
Well, it's great. You're still.
Bands,
Yeah.
great bands, and you're not the only person there. You know, there's like 5 other acts.
Well, I would think a lot of people would be coming to see you.
Well, they're coming to see everybody on the show. And
Ann
Jeffries
Jeffries.
is one, and you know, it just there were different people that went with us to each one, but they're all good at what they do, and the music is there, and the people want to go.
And you are probably very warmly received. You're warmly received. The audience must love.
Oh yes, they're great. Well, they're not as good as you are. You're impossible.
Today's Hollywood versus your Hollywood. What do you think of? Okay, stand back, folks. Here it comes.
Once in a while, you see a really good picture. It's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
Not the same.
Are there any performers that you admire today?
Yes, but I probably can't remember their name to tell you.
Are there any television shows that you like?
Well, I watch Turner Classic Movies all the time. They're all 40s movies, most
Right.
of them.
That's everybody's favorite channel in this room. I'll tell you. If you were to say, what has given you the most joy in life, what would it be?
Well, it would have to be the Lord. And chapel and all the things I learned there. And he certainly opened up a lot of doors for me.
Okay. Well, I've asked you so many questions and some questions from the audience tonight. You've got to give us something really juicy. Something that we don't know because it hasn't been written about. Something that happened in Hollywood that when we leave here tonight, something.
Backtrack to working with Richard Egan.
Okay. Okay. Let's talk.
I've already told you a bunch of them.
Well, what about Richard Egan? Working with Richard Egan.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The first picture, well, I saw him acting as a bartender in something else, and we were looking for a guy to play in, what's the name of it? the underwater thing.
The Revolt of Mamie Stover?
Well, that was the second one.
Oh, Underwater.
Underwater. Anyway, I thought of him in this thing, and the other one was Gilbert Roland. And I saw Gilbert walking with a racket, tennis racket, in Palm Springs, and I thought, Judas Priest, he is one of the older, wonderful, big actors, way before me. And I thought, he looks like that? He's terrific. Why the hell don't we use him? And so we got both of them. And they later said it was all my fault that they got in, you know. Anyway, Richard Egan, he had dark hair and very blue eyes, light blue. And I said, well, he should have some bleach just rubbed on the top, because this is a thing about a guy that does underwater stuff all the time. We lived on a boat, and I said he wouldn't have all that. He'd have some streaks, you know. So the producer, who was one of my best buddies, and he said, well, let's send him up to the hairdo. So he went up there, and this idiot bleached him right to the core. If you can imagine Richard Egan, he was screaming. And I'm over in the corner going, oh God, what is he put? And so we started with this, you know, and we had to both get tan out on the roof of the building, and we carried that whole attitude on through everything, and people thought we were mad, and we weren't mad at all. We were having a ball. And when we went over to make Mamie Stover, we were in Hawaii. We go to this place for dinner, and it's quite a big place, and there was a band playing over there, and a big floor, and some people dancing, and there was also a big, long table of Marines, and they were all sitting along, and one of them, now it isn't just he and I going, he had a date with him or something, and we had dinner there. And one of those guys got up and came over and whispered in my ear. And I said, oh, no, thank you, but maybe later. And so
That's good.
he turned around and went back, and Richard said, what did he want? And I said, well, he just said, would I like it if he kicked the shit out of you? He what? And I said, I have to go to the girls' room, excuse me. And I just walked away. When I came back to that table, Richard Egan was all the way over there talking to the guy that had asked me. And they're clicking a glass together, and the whole table has glasses. They're going. And he had a big grin on his face, and when he turned around to come back to the table, the grin went, and he came back and he said, that guy only asked you to dance. And I said, oh, is that what he said?
I asked for juicy, and we got juicy.
Okay. That went on and on and on, just over and over.
All right, truth or rumor? Is a part of your body the namesake for something in Alaska? The Jane Russell Peaks in Alaska.
I don't think it's in Alaska. I think it's over in Korea or something.
Oh, so it's truth and rumor. Okay. Wow. All right. In this audience, we have many people who are members of the Screen Actors Guild, and we're grateful for the Guild to allow us to be here tonight, because these interviews that have been going on for the past few years are going to be used and listened and revered by countless members of the Screen Actors Guild. So you will be continuing to inspire so many people who are working on their craft to make it better. It's luckiest for us that we're all here listening to all these wonderful, wonderful stories. And
do I get to watch them?
oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to see all those other people and what they're telling.
Oh, well, there. Well, the challenge has now been made. Jane Russell, you have had a career and continue to have a career that is not only inspiring, but it is just magnificent. You have worked with some of the most legendary people that have ever been able to work in front of a camera, behind a camera, and the fact that you, a major international motion picture icon, have spent this past few hours with us is something no one in this room will ever forget. Jane Russell, God bless you, and thank you for being here and being you. Jane Russell, everybody.